Welcome to the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement Accelerator Series, virtual forums designed to help educate and inform individuals and organizations about the services and solutions they provide to facilitate talent pipeline development and establish innovative registered apprenticeships. Now, please welcome NIICA's President and CEO, Mike Russo.
Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for joining today. We're excited to be here with some partner organizations. First and foremost, ASME. You'll learn more about their commitment to this space and building the pipeline. We're talking today, first and foremost, about registered apprenticeships and really how to build that engineering talent pipeline for strategic industries. Think of semiconductors and advanced manufacturing of all types. The event is being brought to you by our We Can platform, and that is short for Workforce Education Career and Apprentice Network. It's NIICA's national platform within our National Center for Skills-Based Learning that we use to share best practices and information, and really to connect people and organizations within the related community of practice. We really have a great panel here today, true pros in this space from across the ecosystem, education, employers, workforce, and industry. So first of all, from our team, we have Martha Ponge. Martha Ponge is our Director of National Apprenticeships here at NIICA. We have Kathleen Kosmoski. She's the Director of Workforce Development at ASME. We have Capri, and she's the Educational and Outreach and Workforce Development Manager at New York Creates in Albany, New York. And then Mike Hill, who just retired, and he was a former Senior Director of Talent and Organizational Development at Applied Materials. So just a couple of quick points before we get started. There is no live Q&A today. We really have a packed agenda, but please feel free to send your questions to info@NIICA, that's NIICA.org, and we will follow up with you with answers in partnership with ASME. And so with that, let's jump right into our opportunities through registered apprenticeships can provide a pathway to really advance careers. So to get things started, I thought that maybe it would be good to, start with some positioning questions to provide some context. And so I have a few questions that I just would like to open up to the entire panel with those differing perspectives. So really starting with the big picture, really, why are registered apprenticeships important right now for strategic industries like semiconductors and advanced manufacturing type of positions, engineering roles? And why, really, what do they do to provide what direct hiring can't? So just think about learn and earn, registered apprenticeship, their traditional direct hiring, postings, right? And hiring that way. What's the difference and what's the value proposition for registered apprenticeships? So I'm just going to open it up to the panel and hear the differing perspectives.
I can start off, Mike, by just saying that hiring at the gateway level and really building talent internally certainly comes at a much lower cost of acquisition for an employer. And typically within 6 months, that individual is operating autonomously, continuing to grow in their role, and beginning to build a pathway to that next higher role. The other thing that I would say is that apprenticeship programs, especially in high-tech fields, generally have retention rates above 90%, which is significantly higher than traditional hiring.
I can kind
from employers lead to retention. Okay.
Jump in off of what Martha was speaking about, because our registered apprenticeships right now are critical. We have a workforce shortage across not just the semiconductor industry, but also healthcare, nursing. We're all looking for, talented workforce. And registered apprenticeships are critical right now because they offer a very structured, scalable, standard-based approach to workforce capacity in a complex and high-growth area. For semiconductor or in the semiconductor sector, sector, engineering sector, we're seeing aggressive expansion through the CHIPS Act funding and global competitiveness, not just in the United States, but globally. So RAs provide a pipeline of talent that is work ready, not just a body to fill a space. They're able to take this talented individual wherever they may be at their career, maybe just starting out, maybe in a technician role looking to advance to an engineering role, like ASME is creating their engineering apprenticeship. And really trying to fill the gaps. So meeting the learner where they're at and trying to scale up and fill the gaps of where we really need those skilled workers.
Yeah, for our audience, just to help provide a little more context. So Capri, we mentioned New York Creates. Everyone might not know who New York Creates is, or what you do. But if you think about a public-private partnership to operate a really preeminent R&D and commercialization fab in New York, there was just a recent announcement, I think, Capri, this week about the EUV accelerator, the investment made by the U.S. government at NACAS meeting. But they stood up the very first registered apprenticeship in that environment in the country. And the operators, the technicians, and those that maintain that fab are really those that are now coming through that registered apprenticeship. So thank you for that, Capri.
Mike, for
Kathleen,
me,
anything to add? Yeah, go ahead.
Registered apprenticeships really widen the pipeline to source that STEM talent, particularly when there's roles that are really hard to fill.
You're able to match candidate characteristics better with company culture. I think there's a better matching there. But also, when we're looking at registered apprenticeships, the required technical instruction is developed in conjunction with the employers so that we're ensuring that the training and the skills attainment is what the various companies and industries are needing of their workforce. And I think that's very important and a key component of apprenticeships.
Michael, anything to add that you missed on before you dropped?
No, I think I got it all out, but I'm not sure.
That's all right.
I'm going to add one final thing, Mike, that just a reminder that an apprenticeship is always a full-time job. And so you do gain access to those individuals who do not have the flexibility to leave the current job they're in to go to training to attempt to get a job in the future. They're going directly from where they are into employment with the commitment of growing a career.
Absolutely. Very good point, Martha. Let me just narrow the focus a little bit. We've just spoken a little bit about generally apprenticeships and the value they provide. What does an engineering focused apprenticeship program look like in practice? And are they designed for new engineers, or do they provide a pathway for others to really enter into those engineering jobs? A pathway for technicians, for example, to skill up and move forward, those that may not have a degree, or et cetera. Talk a little bit about engineering. That's what we're here to talk about today, is really moving forward with engineering focused apprenticeships.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump in and start on this one since I'm the engineering person here. Although Martha's the one with the engineering background, I will say.
And Michael.
Yes, and in apprenticeships within the traditional concept of engineering is fairly new. However, we're hoping to change that. Most people think of engineering, you have to have a 4-year degree and come out of that 4-year institution in order to get into the engineering field. And that's no longer the case. There are a lot of positions and jobs within engineering that only require a 2-year degree or maybe a certificate plus some additional training. So what we're trying to create, or what we're creating with our apprenticeship program, is giving that alternative pathway for students to enter in the engineering field. So taking what knowledge they have, whether they came out of a community college setting, whether they completed their bachelor's degree, whether they're currently working in the engineering field and want to transition to another sector. is looking at their skill set and then enhancing that skill set through additional technical training, the required technical training piece, and having them with a job at a company into that new sector, that field they're looking for. So it's a new way of looking at it, but it's also very strategic in trying to fill those highly skilled jobs that we know are going vacant and need to be filled at a rapid pace.
Mhm. Providing more opportunity, broadening that pipeline,
Broadening that-
getting more people into those
Yeah.
careers through different pathways. Absolutely.
And not
And
just,
I don't want to
say,
minimize American Society of Mechanical Engineers, 150 years. So yes, Martha on our team is a mechanical engineer, and so is and Mike Hill's an engineer as well. But I don't want to minimize ASME in your role.
no, we're excited to be partnering with NIICA on this journey, and just looking to see what we can do moving forward. It's going to be a journey, I know that, but we're in it for the long haul, and we're gonna start making some headway here and really help strengthen the pipeline, and broaden the pipeline, and not just into different sectors with engineering, but making sure that we're including individuals from a variety of backgrounds, because we all know um, diversity helps with innovation and solving the world's challenges right now.
It's a great point.
Yeah. Others?
I know I went to engineering school a number of years ago, and even back then, we did not have enough students to fill open jobs, right? Our graduates were not filling the number of open positions. And to be very frank, in the last 30 plus years, those numbers really haven't significantly changed. So we need to do something different. We need to look at new sources of talent to fill those roles. And internal advancement has to be one of those solutions. The challenge is really building a structure for that advancement. And I think this isn't really a new idea, like Kathleen said, but there really hasn't been anything except tuition reimbursement models that have been really underutilized. And so they haven't produced the numbers of new engineers that we need. So making the apprenticeship part of an individual's job really provides a level of structure and ongoing employer support that currently doesn't exist, but we know has a proven track record of success. So I think with, our experiences in the apprenticeship world and the ability now to access 150 years of ASME's talent, we're ready. We're ready to go. And we do have a solution, and we need to just engage more employers and get the word out that there is a way to go from where you are to where you want to be in that engineering space.
And just to add on to exactly what you were saying, Martha and Kathleen, at New York Creates, we see these engineering-focused RAs as a bridge between your traditional engineering roles and sort of a unique, hands-on, in-demand semiconductor manufacturing role. So these programs could be very dual-purposed, first to support those new engineers who maybe lack a clean room or a very specific fab experience, and second, to provide an upskill ladder for these technicians, for our current employees, many of whom already understand fab tools and understand materials and handling, but they need a more formal training. They need maybe a one-to-one mentor. In addition to that OJT, they have that related instruction very specific to what their engineering ideals or aspirations may be. So our partnership with NIICA really has been so beneficial to this.
Capri, I'm going to add to that a little bit and maybe ask Mike to join that final, positioning question, if you will, providing that context. So I heard you say in your comments basically that it broadens the pathway. It's not one narrow pathway to entry through registered apprenticeships. So if you think about where people may come from, right? So we have folks that are fresh out of college or universities with degrees that have no industry experience. It takes a while to come up to speed. And for example, the semiconductor industry, specific roles, You have engineers that may be coming from different industries, changing industries that don't have that specific industry experience. You have those that maybe for whatever reason in life dropped out of engineering school. You have students that maybe are interns or students that are currently in programming. You want to, provide that pathway and have some industry interaction, before they're even out. And then you have technicians and others that have maybe some of the foundational skills, but not the required depth of the proficiency levels, for an engineer. And then you have, groups of individuals like veterans, for example. I heard you talk about different pathways, not necessarily a narrow focus, but Mike, I know that Applied Materials established one of the earlier registered apprenticeships in the semiconductor industry a couple of years ago in Texas. And I remember we were having discussions on engineering registered apprenticeships, maybe in Arizona next. But what do you think, as from an employer perspective, does that make sense? Or is the pathway really practically more narrow than that?
Well, it does make sense. And I always wanted to get a start on that for students that were in the system that had not graduated yet, find a pathway to connect them to our industry or some other industry where they could learn more about that industry that they were interested in while they were in school. So if you're getting electrical engineering degree or mechanical engineering degree or whatever you're doing, sometimes the focus is not the particular industry, although there are elective courses. But I wanted to say one other thing, because the cohorts that we've had several people, more than a handful of people, that have continued on with their education with a desire to get their degree and ultimately become an engineer. So the RA has really stimulated them to go back to school. In some cases, they had no education or 1 or 2 years, or even another STEM degree that wasn't applicable, but it stimulated interest to further their careers. And I think, one way to do that is to get, in our case, go get an engineering degree of some sort.
Yeah, RA meaning registered apprenticeship, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's nice about the registered apprenticeships and what we're able to do at NIICA and helping, the ASMEs and employers of the world, is that we have a way to not only establish profiles of those individuals, skills profiles, but then determine where there's gaps so the training can be more effectively targeted to fill gaps versus a full-blown hours-based program. They're competency-based, but so in Applied Materials is taking advantage of more and more of that every day. With that, I'd like to shift now into more pointed discussions or more pointed questions for our panelists, so we can dig a little bit deeper. And maybe we'll just start with Martha, again, our Director of National Apprenticeships. In 2022, when we first started work on behalf of the U.S. Department of Labor to establish and expand semiconductor and, really to hire more advanced registered apprenticeships in that pipeline, that supply chain, there weren't really any semiconductor registered apprenticeships.
No.
And since that point in time, we've done a lot of work building pipelines as well as establishing registered apprenticeships. Maybe you could really kind of briefly frame our work regarding the establishment of those apprenticeships and really their strategic importance in building the pipeline.
Thanks, Mike. Well, as many people who are familiar with our organization know, we are mission driven to build the talent pipeline for strategic sectors, those sectors that are important to national security, global competitiveness, and registered apprenticeship, especially at the gateway level, is one of the many solutions that we support and execute on. I mentioned before, hiring at the gateway level comes at a much lower cost of acquisition. We have a higher retention rate, but really most of the apprentices that we see are individuals who either have no experience, they are new graduates, perhaps are coming from other sectors, but they've not had the opportunity to start building a career pathway. And in this day and age, career development is important to workers at every single level of their career. And we see this more and more every day. Our apprentices are that continuous internal talent pipeline that our organizations are looking for. And if you look at it this way, you say, well, as some of these gateway apprenticeships are completed, and that's generally in an 18 to 24 month time period, you basically are ensuring that all of your workers meet base competencies, are ready for the next ladder up position, and you can start moving them up, and future hires can start to come into those roles. The good news is organizations like NIICA and now with ASME, we do this every day. Right now, we're working with over 150 employers nationally. We have about 230 different signed standards that are either approved or under development. We work in 26 different states. Over 157 community colleges have helped us to align the curriculum that they're developing with the needs of employers in their region, which is really, really significant. And to date, we're working with over 3,200 active apprentices over the last 4 years. That's amazing. To bring 4,000 people into life-changing experiences and to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis is very rewarding, and it does, really provide the basis for what we do. But the other really great thing about what we do together, and again, what NIICA and ASME will do together, is this is what we do, right? When you work with an organization like NIICA and the ASME team, employers get to go about their business, and their business is getting their product out the door and remaining competitive in a very dynamic market. We act as the extension of employers with the Department of Labor on their behalf, and we provide that singular point of contact for ongoing support for those employers as they launch and scale programs. Our new partnership with ASME just expands the reach of employers who will be able to take advantage of these new registered apprenticeship programs. And again, we have a very high level of expertise in the SME space for semiconductors. Now we're adding all of ASME's SMEs to our big global family, and that's really exciting. And I really can't, tell you how excited I am to really launch this program and to start building more at that engineering level where we so need it in this country.
Yeah, Martha, you noted the 3,300 active registered apprenticeships, active apprentices, I should say. But what I think is telling is that there's 9,000 committed apprentices that are waiting to actually join programs. And that went from 0 a couple of years ago to space. So good work for you in your team. Hats off to you. What do your perspective? I mean, if you think about your mechanical engineering life, what are and you work a lot with these employers directly. What are the top challenges that they face when it comes to engineering pathway programs? What do you think the challenges would be to actually establish a program, or and if you can name a few of those, if there's some that come to mind, how do you overcome those challenges?
Well, I think the number one problem that we see is there are not enough people in the pipeline. And that's to fill the open job requisitions that are currently available. As we look at the investments the federal government is making in the semiconductor space, in advanced manufacturing, pipeline jobs, those numbers are going to expand exponentially very, very rapidly. In order to fill the openings now and in the future, what we really need to do is to help our employers redefine the way that they hire so that we start to attract more people, those that have traditionally been excluded, right, from these things. We've never had, individuals who perhaps have only finished 1 or 2 years of their degree, but really want to finish, but they can't get a job in engineering. We have, 2-year degree completers that don't know how to make the transition to the 4-year degree and then go on. So there's a lot of people we're missing. So how do we take those people, bring them to the table, and really help those employers to redefine where they put them and how they train them internally? But it's a math problem, right? If we can't fill the funnel, we can't rapidly scale. So we help those employers build long-term and sustainable training plans, which I think is really important, that word sustainability, that incorporate not just training, but relevant training and education necessary to accelerate the autonomy of the individuals you're bringing in who perhaps don't have all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they need on day one. That's okay. We have a plan to help them. But most companies right now are still utilizing very outdated job requirements. They don't know how to map the growth of an employee except by that standard of how long have you been here and what degree do you have? So what we do is we help them to build strategies for building those people, and we build a roadmap, right? And that roadmap is based not on just your prior education, your prior experience, but the knowledge, skills, and ability that you have now in the associated proficiency levels that you need to do those jobs. So incrementally, we can build up an individual as they move in. But it's really, I think, again, it's a people problem. And then it's really saying, if I bring you the person, you need help defining how that person's going to grow and being able to explain to them as individuals why this is an opportunity, right? That you are committed to doing this, and these are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you commit to provide so that they can continue to grow with your organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. I will, a bit of a pitch here is that a lot of our work, our mission is to build that pipeline, and a lot of our work is talent pipeline development. So we have strategy and tools to do that for regions, do that employers, et cetera.
Yep.
Martha oversees national apprenticeship in those programs, but broader solutions as well. So feel free to reach out on that. But Martha, you mentioned stackable, really progressions and stackable. And actually, every one of the panelists, I think, in their opening comments mentioned stackable learning models in various ways. Can you really just quickly help us to how can we leverage and how do stackable learning models work to enable advancement and really support long-term engineering careers? What's that look like? Just kind of quickly framing. And Kathleen's coming next, so you could share your perspective as well on that, Kathleen.
So when I first started working in registered apprenticeship, most of the apprenticeships that I worked with were 4 years in length. And what I started to recognize, whether you were in in a facilities electrician role, if you were in a maintenance role, is that a number of the individuals who became involved were like, oh, but I'm 2 years down the path and I'm really recognizing that this probably isn't the perfect role for me. There's something in my organization, but I've spent 2 years and the training I've got has been so specific on the front end, I'm not able to pivot. And so what we have done is really encourage all employers to build foundational apprenticeships that ensure that all of the apprentices have the base foundational competencies necessary to grow within your organization. So for instance, with Kathleen in the engineering, we're going to look for, can we get the basic math, physics skills, science skills that are necessary to grow in engineering? Can we do those first and give them on-the-job training that's associated with and helps to build competencies in those skills, and then start adding in? So you come to work and you're in the maintenance department and you say, you know what? I love procurement, but it requires me understanding how my company works. And it requires me understanding how does that machine work? What are the materials? So it really provides ultimate flexibility for apprentices to get the basic skills they need And then for employers and apprentices to work together after 18 to 24 months and say, Martha, you are an excellent fit for maintenance, and we want to continue to build that maintenance apprenticeship for you. You were not a perfect in maintenance, but we found that you were great in training, and we want to start shifting you over to help supervising younger people and start building their technical skills. Ultimate flexibility. The other thing it really does, and I think is very important in a market like semiconductors, is when people have those foundational skills, it's easy for them to pivot. So when we have fluctuations in the market, we can then transition people left and right, up and down, fill in gaps, and make sure that we continue their employment until that financial situation changes.
Well, that's actually that's a great segue over to Kathleen. So Kathleen, obviously, you know, our partnership, I'm excited about our partnership, and, you know, we bring a subject matter expertise in this space, obviously, but really ASME brings such a deep history of supporting engineers. And as I mentioned before, it's a century and a half, right? Can you speak more about the unique value, you know, how does that translate, the value that ASME can offer and provide to companies considering registered apprenticeship programs for engineering and technical roles? You know, what's the value that you bring as an organization, and help people understand how that actually translates to, you know, rubber meeting the road?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's a great question, great segue from Martha. But as you said, ASME's been around for 150 years. And so in those 150 years, we've been helping individuals, companies develop solutions to real world challenges across all engineering disciplines. It's not just mechanical. We work across all the disciplines. Take, for example, right now, when we're talking about apprenticeships, the challenge of the U.S. workforce in the shortages of the skilled technical workers. And so when I was brought on, I started with ASME in the community college space and trying to understand how do we better support community colleges and the students and the faculty to ensure that those students continue on their educational journey. And quickly found out students will graduate from community college with the intention of transferring to a 4-year, but they have barriers that they come across, whether it's financial or family obligations. And so they can't continue on with their education immediately, but they want to in a year or two. Well, what can we do? ASME was the first thought. What can ASME do to help support those students until they're able to get back with their education? And so apprenticeships were seemed to be the perfect solution. So that's when we started talking about that. We reached out to NIICA for some support and developed this apprenticeship program to really support community college students along their journey, so that we can give them additional knowledge and skills and training so that they can be effective employees in an entry-level technician position. And then hopefully with the company's help, move along their journey and go back to school to get that degree. But you know, a lot of students are also not wanting to go back to school right away because you know the cost of education is very expensive. So this is another, again, alternative pathway to get individuals into the engineering pipeline
Recording stopped.
along their journey and down the road. So, you know, with your help and, you know, with some work that we're doing with New York Creates, we're looking at how do we create more apprenticeships that can be quote unquote stackable. So they start with the foundations and then they move on to another skill set. And then from there, continuing on their pathway or their journey until they get to where they need or want to be. And along with that, you know, what I love about the stackable approach is that an apprenticeship now is a year or two rather than the 4 to 6, as Martha mentioned earlier. And so as, you know, technology is changing so quickly and you've got emerging technologies that if a company needs somebody to pivot quickly, you can stand up an apprenticeship new standards fairly quickly to address those emerging technology needs and get them trained quicker than having them go back to a formal education pathway.
Yeah, great points, great points. Exciting. We're kind of taking learning and training to the next century. You touched on the kind of the partnership between NIICA and ASME. regarding registered apprenticeships. Can you frame how you envision or how our partnership really through collaboration, we're better able to support companies throughout the nation to establish registered apprenticeships and really scale them and support engineering? Frame that relationship a little bit?
Sure. I'm always under the belief that within workforce development, we can't do it alone. And so our partnership is a great example of that, of where we're working together to address a challenge or a problem that's facing not just the engineering field, but the technical field as well. So by working together, we enhance what each of us is bringing to the table. We're able to expand those apprenticeships faster. We're able to leverage each other's network and ultimately create a broader pipeline. So whether we're bringing students into the fold, whether you're bringing students into the fold, or other workers into the fold, we're leveraging each other's expertise and experience in the different spaces just to expand and enhance the registered apprenticeships.
Yeah, that's good points. You're right. Nobody can do it on their own. It's too big of a challenge. We had mentioned, Martha had mentioned that we have, I don't know, 150 or 160 community colleges in it's actually called the Semiconductor Industry Network of Colleges. It's a SYNC, we call it, where we've aligned their curriculum to targeted industries or employers and the related technical instruction they provide it to support these registered apprenticeships. Now, I know that you've done work specifically with community colleges, developing at RTI. And so you think about bridging that gap between academic engineering pathways and really industry-focused training, which is registered apprenticeships. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you've done and what needs to be done to create that alignment? And again, it just comes to mind as the good work that you've done helping to align that related technical instruction.
Sure. Yeah, working with community colleges is fun. I do enjoy it, although it's also challenging because every community college is just a little bit different. And community colleges are really focused on workforce development. I mean, that's one of the things that they're tasked with do is developing the local workforce. So when we start looking at apprenticeships or even just the local workforce, you need to have the local input from those that are working in that area, in that educational sector, to understand what it is that their local companies are looking for, their local industry. So by talking with our community colleges and their employer network, talking with our employer network, and when I say our, ASME's employer network, we speak with employers on a more national scale. And so when we start talking with those different entities and those different stakeholders, we're able to gain a really broad understanding of what the skill set is needed for engineers or technicians across the country. And then we can hone in on those specific regions and hone in on the technical instruction and provide some very specific training to that region, which again goes back to what companies are asking for. I mean, we can, whether it's us, whether it's you, whether it's NY Creates, we can create the best program in the world. But if it's not meeting the needs of the employers and what their skill set they're looking for their particular industry or their sector of engineering, then then our work is for naught. So it's really important that we listen to our employers as we develop the required technical instruction to ensure that the knowledge and skills that we're providing to the apprentices are what they're asking for and needing.
No, great points, great points. I think maybe we'll shift over to Capri now. And really, I smile whenever I think about New York Creates and where you're located in the Albany Nano Center. It used to be a little Department of Environmental Conservation building there on that corner. And wow, has it expanded, right? It's really, as I said earlier, really one of the nation's most advanced R&D and commercialization fabs, if not the most advanced. It's really Switzerland. If you think about all the major semiconductor companies that kind of develop technologies and applications for those technologies, it's interesting. And really, you're at the cutting edge of that education and workforce development in semiconductors. Can you talk about current state? And I know you're focused on technicians now, which is the beginning of that engineering pathways, but the current state of how is New York Creates using apprenticeships to build a sustainable pipeline? And just talk about again current state.
Sure, Mike. So to pick up on Martha and Kathleen and some of the threads of what they're talking about, and some of the things that we've all sort of mentioned, we've heard words like pathways and roadmaps. So really, what we're trying to all work towards is have our registered apprenticeships be one of the successful workforce models that intentionally support multiple entry points. Meet the learners where they're at. So at New York Creates, we have tried to design our apprenticeships with partnership with NIICA to consider a full spectrum of talent. Who do we have out there that would like to enter into the semiconductor industry? So maybe we have STEM degree holders that lack hands-on experience. We can provide that with our registered apprenticeship. Again, it's a one-to-one mentor to apprentice relationship. So they have very hands-on and a connection point with someone. They maybe need some help with the related instruction or the courses that we have provided through our SUNY system here in New York. Or maybe they need a little bit more assistance with their on-the-job training. And so those STEM degree holders that maybe don't have a background in semiconductors, absolutely, this registered apprenticeship can apply to them. Or maybe we have engineers from adjacent industries, from oil, gas, or automotive industries entering into the semiconductor realm. There's also the technicians that you spoke about, Mike. That's where we have our IMT, our industrial maintenance technician, current apprenticeship. And these learners are very excited. They're technicians with us at New York Creates that want to sort of up their game. They want to increase their knowledge, their on-the-job training, their related instruction with courses like mechatronics, with courses like an AC/DC electrical. Veterans, Mike, I think you mentioned that many who have, exemplary discipline and drive. Many of them have mechanical skills, but they don't really know about the semiconductor industry or the engineering fields that need them desperately. And then Kathleen, you spoke about that early college or maybe the non-completer for college or a community college student for whom the apprenticeship program would become a wonderful stackable credential. So at New York Creates, we have worked with NIICA and our Center of Economic Growth and Hudson Valley Community College to provide a wonderful model to help regionally align a scalable apprenticeship stackable credential that can be nationally scaled. And then hopefully, again, adding the ASME and the engineering credential for their apprenticeship, again, giving more opportunity, widening that pathway, being more inclusive of all learners. That's definitely our goal.
Yeah, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't shine a brighter light on the great work that you all are doing there. We launched the nation's first career opportunity hub in New York 2 Junes ago now, and launched the first Gateway Apprenticeship program where we're able to align curriculum throughout career and technical education with those target industries and employers. So those graduates get directly linked to employers into those registered apprenticeships to get credit for what they've already learned. So we, again, can target the training, and that's a scalable model that can support. We hope to support the entire nation with that same model at some point. But New York Creates was at first and foremost in the center of those partnerships. So not only as a benefactor, that's often where the light shines, but actually a contributor to the development of those pilots and those programs. So really, thank you for the great work. But let's look about it from the employee perspective, from your view of how, what is the advantage? What's the value that is provided to the employees. Dig down a little bit deeper on, why does an employee want to stick around more if they go that route? What does it? What's the value proposition for those individuals that are in the program?
So Mike, like you said, we have alignment between our K-12, our high schoolers exiting. We have our higher education, our community college, our four-year colleges. This apprenticeship really builds that pipeline needed for the workforce sustainability. So why would they want to come to work at an industry, any industry, it doesn't have to be at New York Creates, and join an apprenticeship? Well, you have debt-free courses with, again, through our SUNY system. Ours are with related instruction are with Hudson Valley Community College, the Mechatronics 101, very hands-on lab, and your AC/DC electrical. You have a credential that is nationally recognized, so not only state DOL, but national DOL that recognizes your journey worker card that you receive once you've completed our apprenticeship program. You have a pathway to higher skills and possible higher wages, or possibly pursuing a more advanced position within a company. You have that structured mentorship that I already mentioned, which we're finding the apprentices really, really value a mentor to go to with questions or difficulties in some of their courses. They often say what they've learned in this past year in their apprenticeship program at New York Creates has been far more than what they could have learned, just in a regular day-to-day job. Because they're being embedded with engineers, their mentor, their managers, their researchers, they're gaining that exposure because of that structured mentorship. And again, it will help in the real world for retention, job satisfaction, etc.
Yeah, no, great. Again, thank you and the entire team down there for your great work, and it's paying dividends. People have taken notice, and as you can see, you're growing beyond the current shoes right down there. So it's I'd like to shift over to Mike Hill to close out for panelists. Mike, you were formerly, just as I mentioned earlier, just retired. You were a leader in workforce strategy at one of the world's largest semiconductor tool manufacturers. And what drove the decision to invest in registered apprenticeships? And the first one I know was in Texas, and there's a pretty cool story about prior apprenticeship versus your first foray into registered apprenticeships and how you filled openings. But that was technician focused. Talk a little bit about what drove that decision, and what are the business outcomes? What did you see after you stood up that apprenticeship?
Yeah, Mike, are you referring to the Texas one or the California one?
Well, that was your first one, and you could speak to whatever you'd like, Mike. But I know that fueled the decision. Texas fueled your decision to move forward in other areas.
Right.
It might be worth it to mention that, but feel free to.
Well, both really came from a realization at the executive level that we had a problem attracting specific talent. And in the case of California, where I am, there was two senior engineers that came to me one day and said, Mike, we foresee a problem in the future here. Can you help us widen the pipeline for two jobs that we're already having trouble filling? And so that turned out to be process technician and hardware technician. So it started there, and I'm thinking, okay, how in the heck am I going to do that? So right about the same time, well, I had experience with NIICA already, so I knew a little bit about how to get going there. But in California, I was approached by Foothill College, who got a California Apprenticeship Initiative grant, and that was the starting point. When we started to get the players together, and then it turned out to be a really collaborative effort between many people. So USDOL, California Department of Apprenticeship Standards, NIICA, the Industry Association, Foothill, and two local workforce agencies, plus the internal folks, the executive sponsor, the managers, the mentors, as Capri mentioned, that was a very collaborative effort initially to get that thing off the ground. And then later, 6 other companies, one by one, joined us. So now we have a team of employers in our region that are using those same jobs for their companies.
Yeah, I think that one of the key takeaways there is you needed internal ambassadors at the leadership level.
Mm-hmm.
They need to make the decision. They need to see you were an internal ambassador, but you sold it up to the
Right.
To the leadership. One of the things I'll share the story that Clara from your team, we had her at a panel for the Employment and Training Administration in DC a couple of years ago. She shared the story on your first registered apprenticeship in Texas. So it's already public. I don't mind resharing it. But when you first reached out for the Texas program, you were getting 25 to 30 respondents. This is my understanding from her comments.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To fill openings, you weren't meeting the need, and so that's what started the discussion about moving to a registered apprenticeship model versus requiring the degree. And through posting it as such, and there was some trepidation, I have to admit, but after posting it as such, you had to shut the applications off at 300, and the caliber of the applicants went up, not down. And so from then on, applied materials was in. So that's a good indicator on the opportunity. And now we're taking it up through that stack to engineers. Mike, can you talk a little bit about the process to develop the registered apprenticeship? You mentioned it was a collaborative effort, so we have that. But what does it really take to align that curriculum to get have the community colleges meet the needs of the employers at the employer level? You mentioned NIICA's role as maybe subject matter expertise. I mean, we come from the industry, et cetera. By the way, our Center for Skills-Based Learning leader led technical training for Global Foundries, so globally. So that's what we bring to the table. But how did you leverage all the different players there? You had workforce investment boards involved, et cetera. Talk about the process to actually develop the program.
Yeah, so I'll mention a couple of things. One, the first thing I did is I interviewed the managers of these potential employees, and I said, "Well, what training can you do for we call it RSI, and I'm sorry, the RSI is in the related supplemental instructions from the community college. What can you do to train people on the job?" So I made this list, and then I thought about that list, and then I broke it out into what potentially the community college could do to help us. And so I had this 2-column piece of paper. So I went and visited Foothill, and I said, "Okay, here's what we can do internally. Here's what we need help with. What can you do to build a curriculum that will support our technicians?" And then that helped when I worked with NIICA to start building the standards. So that was the first thing, and that was really helpful because first of all, the community college could understand that, and then they could work on curriculum development, and they built new courses to help us. So that worked really well.
Yeah, that was the impetus. That was the starting point. Yeah.
Well, excuse me. One of the other things have to mention though is I've done a few panels like this, but one thing I tell people is there's a secret sauce to this whole thing. One is the collaboration among people who, all these partners, including other companies. But some of the secret sauce is related to the workforce agencies, the local agencies. So in the case of Texas, an organization called Workforce Solutions helped us get the word out, and that led to those 300. In the case of locally here in California, there's 2 agencies, one called NovaWorks, the other called Work the Future. They were able to blast out these opportunities to over 7,000 people in 3 counties. And so we got 250 applicants in 1 week. It's just amazing.
Effective outreach, great engagement through the collaboration of the partners.
Right.
Excellent.
Right.
Well, listen, we're getting ready to close here. So I'd like to do kind of a speed round to the panelists. If you could leave our audience with one key thought or one action to move apprenticeships forward, in their organizations, what would it be? And again, speed round, quick comments. Jump right in. Anyone?
I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to say, don't be afraid to get started. There are options, whether you want to sponsor your own program, whether you want to partner with one of us on the panel or somebody else in the country, so that they are the sponsors and handle all the paperwork, or whether you're just looking for external candidates to fill your positions. Do something to get started and reach out to any one of us, and we're happy to help you and point you in the right direction.
Thank you, Kathleen. Others?
Kathleen stole exactly what I was going to say. You can start small, but start now. So you don't need a 50-person cohort to start here at New York Creates. We started with a 5-person cohort. ASME, I think they're starting with around 20, Kathleen, 25 for their first cohort. So anyone that's really interested in our registered apprenticeships, definitely reach out. Martha and Mike, Kathleen, they're so wonderful answering any questions. Begin with a single occupation. Where is your talent gap? There are frameworks out there. We would all be more than happy to speak with anyone about getting started. So, reaching out to that talent, using the frameworks that are in place, and, building from there.
Mike, I would say, obviously think about your needs, your critical needs in the future, but think about your employees too. Besides the retention research, the other things I've noticed is our apprentices have high pride in their accomplishment. They have a stronger identification with the organization, and they're developing skills and knowledge that they would have never got if they just joined as a regular employee.
Good points, Mike. Martha.
That warmed my heart, Mike, to hear that. That really is, it's special. Don't think you have to have everything buttoned up in a neat, perfect package to get started. You don't. And that's why you have collaboration, so that other people that have done this before, and other people that have worked with colleges that you've not worked with before, worked with workforce boards, we're leveraging everyone in the collective groups, expertise to bring something to the table. And when you work with a collaborative group like the one that you see here today, they're all going to help. They're all going to provide you with answers. And if the first answer isn't the right one, don't worry. There are 3 or 4 that are coming next. We're flexible. We can make it work. We understand everybody's needs are different, but we can help you do it. You just have to ask for help.
There you go.
You just
Martha.
have to step out and ask for help. That's all you need.
Well, listen, I'd just like to close by just thanking all of our speakers and really everyone who joined us today online. We really appreciate your efforts, your interests, etc. This is a great collaborative group. As the speakers panelists have said, feel free to reach out. We've had a chance to hear real examples of how RAs are really helping build the next generation of talent, and not only tech talent, but all the way up through engineering. We have a lot of potential here and a lot of opportunity. This is really how we make progress, by working together and aligning what we teach through the education system, degree, non-degree, with industry needs. And this is a vehicle to do this and really leverage it. You've heard about our commitment between NIICA and ASME. We are really committed to these models, supporting regions, states, employers, etc., to build their pipelines and to really broaden that pipeline and create more opportunity. And our goal is to really make this scalable and really accessible across the entire country, helping to build the talent pipeline and really the pathways of what are really great careers. You've learned how we're working together to help employers and individuals take advantage of these opportunities. If you haven't done so, you can be on that. You can be on that list or one of them. We'd be more than happy to work with you to learn more and to potentially establish programs. We're only an email away, right? Just reach out to any one of us. You can quietly go to Capri. How's this really working, Capri? And Capri will share that with you. Mike, he's retired now, but he's absolutely picking up the phone. So you're going to see a replay will be sent to everyone that's on the list that's attending today. Please let us know if you have any questions. Again, email to info@NIICA.org, and we will absolutely get back to you. So again, thank you for participating today, whether you've been on the panel or viewing. And we hope to hear from you, and we're looking forward to really working collaboratively to build that pipeline and create greater opportunity to great engineering careers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. A recording of this event, as well as information on upcoming webinars, will be available on NIICA's website. For more information about the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement and its programs, visit niica.org.